everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we have my very special mummy on the show, and today we're going to talk about interior design. So for those of you that don't know, she did my apartment in New York when I was living there, and then I met this dude on a chairlift in Colorado, and now we moved, and now she's doing our house in Atlanta. I left a question box for you guys on my Instagram stories last year when we first moved here, and we got some great questions, and you guys were really keen for this episode. And then in my behind the scenes bubble, I left another question thread, and there's heaps of questions. So I'll give a little bit of background on what Mum's helping us with and why I hired her as our interior designer. And then we will jump straight into the questions so that we can help you guys with doing this. Okay. So first things first is that she's incredible, and I love a nice space, but as Mum can attest, I have no fucking taste.
No, you have taste. It's about pulling it together.
So before there was this cushion, right, that we're always sticking on different chairs. And Mum thought, I think you bought the cushion. And then today I was like, I hate that fucking cushion. And she's like, yeah, where did I get it from? And I was like, well, I bought it. And she goes, that's why. That basically sums it up.
It just didn't work. And I was thinking, God, did I miss that one? Anyway.
Yeah. So I think this is something that I didn't realize when Mum became an interior designer. And I feel like a lot of women, especially mums, they are, whether they're actually interior designers or self-proclaimed interior designers, I always thought, well, I like saving pins. I could do interior design. Holy shit, I could never do interior design. I can't even sit down on a meeting with Mum for an hour and make a fucking decision. The decision fatigue would drive me nuts. I don't know how interior designers make a decision. And I will say, I think something that I also have noticed since working with you for nearly 2 years, because we didn't even finish my fucking apartment in New York before I left. But there is definitely a difference, and maybe you can quickly jam on this. There is definitely a difference between interior designers, quote unquote, and someone that has gone to years of training and done you've done all these kitchen fucking courses and design things. And yeah, that there is definitely a difference between interior designers like you and then everyone and their neighbor that's a quote unquote interior designer. Can you maybe just share the difference? People know what to look out for.
Sure. Well, a lot of it comes down to space planning. And really, you just have to go back to the basics, and you have to start with a floor plan so that you know that all those items that you're going to buy are actually going to fit into the space. And it's not even just the physical item. You need negative space so that I can rest. You need space around an object so that you can move easily. And it also can be determined by how many people are living in the space. But there's certain kind of guidelines about, for example, how much room you need behind a chair at a dining table. So now I'm going to talk millimeters. So this is probably going to drive
some people. That's okay. That's all right.
I struggle to work in inches. So anyway, for example, a dining chair, you need minimum 800 millimeters, ideally, to be able to push that chair back and for the person to be able to stand up comfortably and move away from the table. You could get away with 700, but little things like that are really important. And it's not always possible to have ample space like in your dining area in your apartment. Yeah. So we had to improvise, and hence one of the other things that we did in your apartment was have a glass table so that there was a bit of an optical illusion that there was more space. If we had a timber table, it would have looked a lot more solid. So back to your question about the differences. I guess because I've done so many years of study, I'm a bit of a course junkie. With years of experience, you're able to just visually be able to map out spaces. But if you don't have that experience, even being able to draw up something on graph paper is a lot of help, because you need to know that items are going to work in a space. The difference between someone who studied a lot and someone who perhaps is good with colour or fabrics is that there's a huge difference between flow and function and really the design coming together, because it's a lot more than just a few colours and a bit of fabric. Yeah. Everything has to gel, everything has to work. There has to be a repetition in a space of whether it's a colour or a texture or something like that, so that I can then travel comfortably around a room as well.
Okay.
there's a lot involved.
I feel like something that I picked up from working with mum that made me realize, like, one, I can know if I can do this job, and two, there's a lot that goes into it, is that when I will suggest something in a space, she will straight away think about function, think about dimensions, think about like so many different things where I'm like, it made me realize that it is so much more, I guess, for really, really, really good interior design that's functional as well. It's so much more than just, oh, this looks pretty, let's put this in a space, or let me just buy a sofa like this Pinterest thing and then it will look good. Because, for example, my sofa that looked incredible in New York, it doesn't work as well in our current living room because the flow is completely different. And, you know, in New York, I was living in a glass box, so we needed things that had a lot of texture and that really was very grounding. But here we live in a house, so it's like we actually want to keep the space a bit more open and whatnot.
Well, yeah, and actually another thing to think of with your sofa here is that your television is higher. So therefore the sofa has a different comfort level because your eyes are actually looking up, whereas in New York, your television was at eye level.
Yes.
So you could sit quite comfortably back in the sofa and look at the television. But now you almost need to slouch into that sofa to be able to look up to the television because of its location.
You're right.
So it's little things like that, just tweaking little things like that. You know, the location, how a family works, how a couple works, whatever individuals work, it is imperative. You know, there's a questionnaire I send out at the beginning of every project just to give me a bit of a rundown as to, you know, what the family likes and equally what the family doesn't like.
I didn't get that questionnaire.
Yeah, you don't count, honey. And you're a league of your own, honey. Like sometimes you're the best client and other times it's like, let me tell you, her attention span when I ask her questions, 10 seconds.
Quite literally.
Seconds. I have to have it listed. And she's like, next. And I'm like, whoa, no, we're going back to the curtains. We have not finished with the curtains. Anyway, so we've deviated there.
But yeah, so even something that that I will say that mum does really well that I appreciate in her, and I think that's maybe an important thing if you're looking for an interior designer, is someone that appreciates, yes, the design and X, Y, and Z, but that understands the function aspect and whether, like, how usable it is and does it make sense. Because I think that a lot of interior designers, like, you'll look at a space so beautifully, or mum's told me stories of like other people that have had other designers do things and the space is beautiful, but it's not fucking usable because it's not practical. Like, even with our sofa, we're trying to make it beautiful, but also practical. And like the fabric that we're that we're using is whatever it fucking is. And like the design of the sofa, I wanted a certain look, but then mum made me really aware that, like, yes, that looks good, but in 10 years time, you're actually going to get sick of it because it's not going to be comfortable and blah, blah, blah.
So there's always a lot more to design than the actual physical look.
Yeah.
So, well, talking about your sofa, we'll go back to the sofa. But again, you know, we had to consider how you use the sofa. What do you plan on doing on the sofa? Are you going to sit there and work?
I thought you were going to say something naughty.
Well, I don't know, like, God forbid, but yeah, maybe. We're not going there this episode. But like I mentioned about your television, that's really important. The height of the television compared to the sofa. Is your partner really tall? Mm-hmm. You know, my son is 6'8". So a low, sexy sofa that are all really sexy right now and on trend can be the most uncomfortable thing for some people. You know, so it's always function. For me, it's always about function. Yes, form comes into it, of course, but it's got to be functional. It's got to be, you know, practical. And hence we're choosing a Krypton Cravat Performance fabric for dogs. There will be children.
Yeah.
You know, it has to stand the test of time because when you're having a custom sofa made, it's bucks, it's big bucks. But we're actually pulling together a few styles to get the end product
that will like look good, but also be practical, feel good, and be durable with a lot of species on it. Species. Okay, so let's jump into some of these questions that you guys have left in the behind the scenes bubble. All right. So first question is from Megan. I don't even know where to begin to decorate. What are some easy ways to make a space feel homey and put together when you live in an apartment and want to get the security deposit back? And this was actually one that was asked quite a bit. I want to say, and maybe Mum, you jump in, I was in an apartment in a very, very strict building, and I was surprised when they said to me, oh, you can like put things in the wall. You just have to make sure it's filled afterwards. So maybe that's something to also double check for some people of maybe you think you can't put something in a wall, but actually the rule is you can.
Yeah.
You just have to return the space to the way that it was when you moved in. And if they already have the paint color and stuff, it's not that expensive to fill the hole in, etc.
No, and if you're living in an apartment for quite a while, you plan on staying there for a while, it's worth putting a couple of holes in that wall.
Yeah.
If you know that wall, I'm just going to say Whisper White, Antique White, USA, whatever, they're Dulux colours I'm rattling off. So, you know, any sort of colour, even if, you know, you could check with the landlord about the colour if they have a leftover paint tin, or if you could paint the wall a similar colour, you know, do a little colour match, which you can easily do with a fan deck, you know, put it up against the wall, but also paint does change colour over time, over the years, and depending on the amount of sunlight that hits the wall, because it can fade, depending on how much how UV stable it is. But there are other things. There's other ways apart from, you know, just whacking a hole in a wall and putting up a picture. You can use those command adhesive strips that you get from Home Depot,
Bunnings in Australia, whatever.
Yeah,
if you Googled like command strips, you'd be able to find
3M make them. There's some cheaper brands. They all work better than blue tack, because that way you can at least get a frame. But like Monica's picture wall here, they're all just really thin little nails that are holding up all these pieces of art. And, you know, we're talking a minuscule nail that you can easily just fill with a little bit of filler and paint over if you know the paint colour, or you reckon.
What I was surprised about was when I moved into my New York place, they didn't even paint over it. Where there was paintings put up, they just filled the hole because the walls were already white, and I guess the filling was just the same, and they just painted over that little bit. So maybe your landlord won't even care, depending on the building that you're in. So maybe it's something. I would say it's definitely worth asking and looking into.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But these command strips are a great alternative. But other things you can be doing, like flowers, fresh flowers, plants. I mean, flowers can be expensive. I appreciate that if you're not able to go to a market. But plants, orchids, last forever. Give you
Unless
the flower.
you're me and you don't water them.
You have to water. Once a week, that's all you need. A little bit of fertiliser, once a month. They last forever. They're great. And then you put them outside and they'll reflower the next year. So really easy to do. And what I tend to do at home, because I was never that good at watering when I was younger, you pick a day. My day is Saturday. Saturday is water plants day.
Yeah.
You know, the day the cleaner comes or whatever.
Yeah.
Get the cleaner to water if you're able to have a cleaner.
Yeah.
Just make one day a week, water the plants. Plants can add a huge difference. Things like just layering up a space, whether it's cushions, it's throw rugs, things like that. Some knickknacks, things that mean something to you, photo frames, you know, something you've picked up from your travels, a journey, you know, that you've managed to have, and then you find a book that relates to that space that you went to or that place.
Yeah. Anything else to make it more homey?
To make it more homey, light.
Okay.
Now, one thing that does tend to happen in the US is that you don't have a lot of overhead lighting. They do a lot of lamp lighting, which can set a mood, but there's different sorts of lighting. There's ambient light, which is your lamps and things like that, or there's task lighting, which is more of a directional, brighter, direct light. So again, it depends on the space, but floor lamps add great ambience, soft lighting. Then you can have brighter lights for task lighting. Like if you want a reading lamp in a chair, you could have a more directional floor lamp that will direct light onto a book, or if you're sewing or something like that, you know. But lamps can add a lot of warmth. Definitely.
What about wood? Because when we added that wood console in my New York apartment, and I was like, oh, that's going to look terrible there, it really grounded the space. It made it so different.
Correct. Thankfully, we're moving away from the whites and the greys, what I feel.
Yeah.
And look, I still like that Scandinavian look, but they bring in a lot of blonde timber, which is nice, which warms up a space. You know, I quite like moody spaces. I quite like dark spaces, but I need good lighting because I'm a bit blind. So I need good lighting in those sort of spaces. But thankfully, we're moving more towards the warmer colours. I don't do trends, but if you're looking at sort of trends, the terracottas, the warmer colours on the palette, on the colour wheel, which is great. And so your apartment was lots of glass in New York and white and a bit of black.
Yeah.
Quite cold.
Very
so we
cold
really
apartment.
needed to warm it up with some warm tones in rugs, with some warmer furniture. So even though the sofa was white, we did a boucle, which
is now going out of trend.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's moving on. It's still hanging in there, but it's very sort of now. But then even if you bought a cheaper sofa, which we did do, you can add some lovely cushions, that don't cost a fortune, but yet still
and lots of throw rugs. We had lots of throw rugs in my New York apartment.
And throw rugs, books,
textures,
You can add colour through books. The spine on a book can add a great amount of colour to a space, and photo frames, with friends and family. And that creates a homier space, because, again, it's bringing people into your space in an indirect way through photos.
Okay, I love that. So on the note of trends, really quickly, I feel like people would love to know this answer. What are some things that are timeless? Because something that we've even focused on, everyone in our house, is we're putting a lot of money into it, and we want things that are timeless, that will last 10 years, and I'm not going to get sick of it in a year because it's a trend. I want it to look beautiful, but I want it to not just, you know what I mean? I don't want people to be like, oh, it's out of trend in a year's time. So what do you feel like are some key things, or I don't even know how to ask this question, just timeless stuff?
So what one person's timeless is going to be different to another person's timeless.
That's a good thing. So don't Google timeless.
So and what appeals to one individual may not appeal to another individual. And also my own tastes have changed over the years. So it's really, when I ask a client if they like something, I need a reaction. If I don't get an instant reaction, or you don't respond straight away, like what were we talking about the other day? There was something. Curtain fabric. Yeah. And you're going, no, that's a no.
Yeah, because then when I find something I like, I'm like, yes, straight away. And that's how I know that I want to invest in that thing, because I actually really like it.
Correct. So when you respond to something and it kind of makes your heart skip a beat, you go, ooh, yes, ooh, I like that. Then you're on track. So, yeah, like I said, what appeals to one is not necessarily going to appeal to another. A lot of people want to play it safe, and they consider safe colours to be timeless. Sure. So maybe your big ticket items, like your sofa, like your rugs, you might go, dare I say, safer with your colour choices. But again, let's use you again, the sofa choice, the fabric that we are using for your sofa. We're not going to do a light colour because it's not overly practical, even though we're using, a very, very tough fabric, a tough tactile fabric. We still need to know that it's going to stand that test of time. So we're going for sort of a light brown, for want of a better description for the majority. So if you've got dogs and kids, maybe a white sofa is not such a great idea. You could put a white chair in that could easily then be recovered, because some people love white. I don't do a lot of white, I guess, because I'm so functional.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live in a space that's so precious you can't do anything.
And actually, that's another really good thing about you. You're always like no to pieces that you can't touch or sit on or do anything with.
Yeah.
And that are not durable, because then it's not livable.
Well, there's no point in having something that you can only look at and you can't use when you've paid a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can pay a lot of money for artwork and look at it, but it brings you enjoyment.
Right.
But to have, a really expensive chair or sofa, and it's like, don't sit in that. I remember years ago, we had these friends that had this very gorgeous divine kitchen covered in Carrara marble. And one of the kids went to put a soft drink, a can of Coke, on the Carrara marble, and she went nuts. She was like, no, you can't do that, da-da-da. And then the men went to put down red wine. No red wine. And I was thinking, well, that's just not practical. And I've lived with Carrara.
Stressful.
Yeah, I've lived with, do you remember one of the rental houses we were in there while we were building, Adney Avenue?
Oh, yeah,
It had Carrara marble. Well, you couldn't even cut a lemon because it guaranteed it would spurt everywhere and it would eat into the marble. Marble's great. You just need to know the downside. And if you're okay with the downside, then
cool. Yeah, love it. Okay. All right. We're in the process of renovating our home room by room, wondering whether it's better to wait and style it all at once, all at once whilst it's done, when it's done, I think she meant, or if there's a way to do it in stages whilst keeping the flow and vibe consistent.
Okay.
We were talking about this earlier.
For you, yes. Yeah. So I think there needs to be an overarching kind of plan, vision, color palette. No, you don't have to style every room at the end. You could do it bit by bit, but at the back of your mind, you need to be going, okay, I'm in love with browns and green. So what's my color palette going to go head towards? What is the vibe? It's always about the feeling. How do I want my house to feel? It's always feeling. And that probably should have been one of the very first things I ever said. It's always about how do you want to respond to your space? When you walk into your space, how do you want to feel? Do you want to smile? Do you want there to be energy? Or do you want it to be really a reduced palette and calm? Do you want it to be dark and moody? So when it comes to styling a whole house, I would have an overall vision based on a feeling. And it's always good to collect pictures, whether it's magazines, Pinterest, or whatever. So I feel from room to room there needs to be some sort of connection, whether it's a floorboard, and that floorboard is carried out throughout the house, whether it's a colour palette like we're doing. We are repeating the colour palette in different objects, whether it's a rug, whether it's a table, curtains, whatever. It's nice to have a continuation, so then the house actually feels like it flows. You don't have to repeat every single fabric, for example, that you use in, say, the sitting room. You don't have to repeat that fabric in every other room. It's just about carrying through a pattern, carrying through a colour, carrying through maybe a bit of texture here and there. In a perfect world, in a perfect project, I get to design kitchens, bathrooms, do all of that, do all the hard finishes. But even when I'm doing the hard finishes, I'm still thinking how I'm going to style this. I'm still thinking, what fabric am I going to use for the sofa? Like, it's all up here. Before I go to a client, I have to have everything worked out. I have to have the floor plan drawn up, the kitchen designed, and then I do a big presentation where I have all the fabrics, all the hard finishes and all the fabrics, so that you know that those hard finishes are going to be repeated elsewhere. They're going to be flowing into fabrics. Yeah. There's going to be some sort of connection, so that when you walk into a space, it sits in harmony and it flows and it has that feel that you're after through the whole house. So no, you don't have to wait till the end. When it comes to my projects, I opt to try and style for as much as I can for a client and do it all in one go, but it's always in my head from the get-go.
Love it. Okay, cool. Okay, organizational tips for keeping the space clean. I feel like you can relate because I am not clean. What are some things to do that would look pretty but also help you if you're not a tidy person in keeping the space tidier?
Baskets. I'm a bit of a fan of baskets.
You are.
I do like baskets and containers and not necessarily with lids. So baskets, open baskets, deep enough that you can just shove all your shit in there. But even ceramic bowls, like one thing we've always had in our houses, a nice ceramic bowl to dump your keys, dump your shit as you come in the front door. So it's sitting in a nice ceramic bowl of some sort. Doesn't have to be expensive. I'm a bit of a fan of high and low. Sure, I love high. Everyone likes high. I'm a big fan of Australian made, and always trying to support Australian made. Even though I'm in America, I've still bought Australian products. Baskets. You can get cheap storage. There's a place for IKEA in the market. There absolutely is. Yeah. We've bought a lot of stuff from Crate and Barrel, CB2. Storage. And we can't all afford built-ins. Built-ins are great. But it's nice to have individual pieces that have a bit of character and a bit of story to tell, as opposed to just a wall of painted built-ins, or
we love like me and my fiance, I won't say his name, we love a cozy vibe. So we've loved adding, what are those drawer things called now, chest of drawers and like cabinets and extra items, because that also I feel like helps to make the space warm and cozy.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we've used a lot of wood, and we've used a lot of different wood. So burl wood, this cabinet here, which is dark wood with black leather drawers. We've used a lot of fluting in the timber. So there's all sorts of timber, but to warm up the space. But you have high ceilings.
Well, in this room, very high ceilings. Yeah.
But we've opted for colour on the wall because there's a lot of light. So you can have colour on the wall. Yeah. But then I don't mind I don't mind a dark, moody space either. It depends.
Well, our bedroom is like a dark brown.
Very dark brown.
And we did that because the bedroom was so fucking big, or
Huge.
is. Like, it's too big, that we actually wanted the space to feel smaller because it was just ridiculous. Like, we have a king bed, we have a chest of drawers, a sofa, a chair, a huge, like a giant TV on a whole wall, another cabinet. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly. Yeah. Okay, so baskets, bowls, storage units as much as you can. And it is about putting things away straight away. Yeah, I know. I've tried to get into the habit. Putting it away. Okay. So, next question. Okay, is your mum switching amongst styles like bohemian with mid-century? Okay, like, are you blending styles? Does she have a pattern, must mixes and no-goes? Does that make sense? Like, things, and like, e.g. flowers and geometric sounds already horrible, but I guess you get the point. Clearly needs help.
I don't have a set style. If there's anything I'm known for, it's probably colour. Yes, I can do a Hampton style. Yes, I can do neutral. Do I sit comfortably in the land of latte? Probably not. But I can do latte. Latte is basically taupe and white.
Yeah.
Like
very
a
neutral.
Latte coffee.
Yeah.
But for me, I just need a bit of energy. I need a bit of life. I need a bit of, a spark, and something to make you smile, some energy, and something to get sort of the vibe up, something to get, the feeling going. For me, this is me personally.
Keep talking.
Oh,
I'm just moving that.
I like to walk into a space and smile. So we have a bright yellow front door. As you walk in the front door, there's, another piece of artwork. We've got, bright furniture, and big artwork. Because I want to walk in and go, oh yeah, you know, I want to feel happy, but I want it to be smart and sophisticated. So we've got a nice rug, but it depends. You may want to open your front door and just feel calm and zen and keep it neutral.
And on that note, something that I've really wanted with this house is for it to be really calming to like our nervous system. Bedroom needs to be calm, living room needs to be calm, my office, I want it to be calm, etc. The guest room, I've been like, I really want that to be quirky, or like one of the guest rooms. Podcast room can be a bit quirkier because I'm not in it as much. But mum has been really big on, we're making it calm, but we're not having no life in the room.
No, so calm can be just simply using a tonal palette. So even in this space, we have, even though this wall's throwing a bit of a green, it's actually quite cream, and it's actually got a bit of a brown undertone to it. So, we've got browns on browns on browns. We've got layers. We've got textures happening. So it might be a very similar colour palette. There's not a lot of energy in this space from colour, i.e. there's no reds, pinks, orange, blues, whatever. Right. We do have some green. So it's still a very neutral palette, but we've got interest going on because we've got burlwood, because we've got different shapes, we've got different sizes, we're layering. Yeah. We've got a real plant. I'm not really into
That's not dead yet.
I'm not really into fake flowers because they collect dust and they look shitty after a short time. But so you can keep it neutral by just repeating colours, but repeating tonal values of those colours. So like some darker browns, some lighter browns, and creating interest through texture, because texture is really important.
Yes.
If you're just going to go neutral. For me, because I need energy, I don't like everything to me. I'm not big on everything being of equal value and reading the same color texture. I like I like a deviation, and big on a hero piece in a space as well. So back to the original question, I'm probably more known for working in color and doing things a little bit differently, trying to think of a different space. A colleague of mine said to me one time, why do you go to so much effort to find so many different pieces for a space? Just repeat the same thing. Just go over and over again. And this colleague of mine has a phenomenal business, and she basically does the Hamptons look. Blues, whites, greens, and repeats it and repeats it. And she's got a great business. She makes a lot of money.
What you want.
But that's just not me. I try and twist and make it a bit quirkier and find a different piece.
And you, because you said this to me, you want like the client's personality to be in the room.
Absolutely. It's your space. It's not my space.
Yes.
You're living in it. I'm not living in it. Otherwise I would just do the same thing or just repeat.
Yeah.
But it's about what appeals to you. And again, it comes back to function.
Yeah.
How do you use the space? How many people are in the space? How many people are living in the space?
Yeah.
Who is using the space?
Love it. Amazing. And wait, to answer this one as well, of like this part of, do you like blend styles? Yes.
Oh,
I feel like. Because
yes.
I'm like, I want mountain vibes, but we live not in the mountains right now. This house not in the mountains. And also something that I didn't even realize, because this is clearly why this isn't my job, is I just thought that you can make any house a mountain vibe. But no, you do need a mountainy house, a very wooden, stone, etc. to make it a mountain vibe. So we've blended like contemporary with some like little vintagey, quirky pieces with mountain vibes, with like some more like Frenchy, maybe. I don't fucking know. Don't ask me. But point is that you do blend styles.
I do. So
okay, what's the tip then on like how do you blend a style? If you're like, I like bohemian and I like mountain, is that what? How would you blend that style?
Again, it's about, you could pick from the color palette.
Okay.
So about repeating some browns. You know, so your fiance, it originally started out saying he liked modern and clean lines. Well, let me tell you, we've gone completely the opposite.
Because I don't like that. I didn't want that.
But then, so you've got to take into consideration to some extent the architecture, how you live, where you're living, and given where you are now, there's still a lot of trees. It's still the house, the architecture of the house still lends itself to a lot of timber and a bit of a mountainy vibe. So we've done a few bits and pieces, few antlers here and there.
Yeah.
But we've not made it that traditional, dare I say, American ski lodge look, because it's not overly practical to live with every day.
Yeah.
And also it doesn't suit the architecture of the house.
Yeah.
And that does dictate to some extent a bit of space. But having said that, we can blend.
Yeah.
We can definitely blend. And I'm a big fan of more of an eclectic look, which is what I would say I am.
Yeah.
More eclectic, a bit of this, bit of that.
But if you Google eclectic, that looks terrible, because when I gave Mum the brief for my New York thing, and it was all opposing, it was like vintage, mod, like it was just everything opposite. I guess that's just, I'm a bit opposites in that way. Mum was like, so basically your vibe is eclectic. But then when I Googled eclectic, I'm like, that looks fucking horrendous. So don't Google eclectic. I feel like eclectic is just like blending a mix of different things.
Yeah, but there's got to be, this is where a designer's eye is obviously helpful. So there's got to be some sort of continuation of colour, of theme, of, material.
Okay. All right, next question. Okay, inspiration for a Gold Coast, Australia, so she'll know, for a Gold Coast interior, exterior design, waterfront. We have a beach house in Newcastle and love the Hamptons vibe, lol. But I think we need a more luxurious vibe for Gold Coast, our next house. Okay, any quick tips for that?
Okay, so when you say Gold Coast,
waterfront.
Yeah, I instantly think bling, because a lot of Gold Coast homes are bling.
Okay.
Which is not necessarily my personal vibe, and I'm not sure whether that's what you want to do.
I know she's a client.
Do you know the person?
Yeah,
okay.
I don't think that would be her. I'd be surprised if that was Kate.
Okay, because a lot of Gold Coast, traditional sort of Gold Coast homes do the shiny, glossy white tile or a light tile. They do a lot of bling and a lot of crystally sort of stuff, and a bit more of that, fake French.
Okay.
Anyway, but so for a more sophisticated look, I would bring in, and if you're on the water and you want that coastal sort of vibe, I'd be thinking sandstone. Natural.
Oh, I love that.
But again, that mix of sort of a rough honed stone with something that is really smooth and shiny, perhaps.
Yeah.
Mixing up that luxe with the rustic creates a lot of interest as well. Mixing up the stone, like if you did a sandstone color with, white painted timber, or some shiplapping, which is basically just timber overlapping timber. White paneling, for example, that works really well in a coastal home. But to elevate it, you could simply be doing that also through colour, as opposed to everything being white. You could have shades of white. You could bring in a slight warm grey with it as well. Cool. But I like the idea of having some blonde timber in there and some sandstone.
Love that. Okay. All right, next one. So if you're establishing a long-term rental, like when you're not sure how long you'll even be in the country, what can you focus on, or like what should you then focus on in a long-term or a short-term rental? Sorry.
Sure. Well, we've done long-term rentals in different countries. So basically, what we actually had was we had movable rooms. So you could literally pick up the furniture and the carpet and everything, and wherever you were going to be, that room worked. Okay. Everything in that room, that sofa worked with the carpet, worked with the coffee table, and so on and so on. So that's something that you could think of. But then I don't know if you're able to ship furniture wherever you're moving to, or whether it's just interstate or something like that. But obviously investing in key pieces that you can take with you. And I don't see, rentals are very different. I don't know whether that's in Australia or in America, because when you rent homes in America.
Emily is in South America, actually. She just moved from Canada to South America.
Okay, because sometimes you rent homes with furniture. You see, so it all kind of depends on that. So if you're renting a home with furniture, we'll then invest in some.
So she said decorating. So maybe she's decorating it. Okay. So what would be some key then throw
lamps, throw rug lamps, love lamps, plants. Okay. Plants can add so much value. Okay. Just a bit of greenery in a space just adds so much. But even things like mirrors, reflecting that light.
Oh, and you know what I did in London? Because I was living in a short-term rental where it wasn't my furniture. We got new lampshades. We got throw rugs. We got what are those like pillows that aren't like sleeping pillows called?
Cushions.
Okay.
Or pillows here. They call them pillows.
Oh, yeah. So I know we have like a language barrier between me and my fiance with these things. We got, what else did I get?
We did buy plants as well.
We did, plants.
And just bits and pieces, candles, photo frames.
Oh, like trays, coffee table books. Yeah, it was those things that really helped.
Again, books add another dimension. They add colour, they add warmth, and stability.
Okay, so how to decorate a space for someone who loves windows and natural light. That is me. What are good colour palettes together? So how to decorate a space for someone who loves windows and natural light. What are some good colour palettes together?
Well, again, one of the first questions I always ask a client is, what colour do you like? What are you drawn to? But equally, what aren't you drawn to? So your colour for your branding is pink, red, and I'm not
a bit of brown. Yeah. And I could never also do a room fucking red, but we have a little bit of like a brown now in the branding, which has been perfect. We kind of redid that. So now a lot of the house, actually, especially if I was wearing like a pink, a black, or a red outfit, then the colors would be perfect.
Yeah. See, and red's not a color I'm drawn to at all.
Oh, I think in a space that would look horrendous.
So, well, you could do accents in like a raspberry red, perhaps, or something like that. But anyway, so it's always about what you're drawn to. I don't necessarily put my color palette onto people because I'm not living in the space. They're the ones. So it's always, what color appeals to you? Do you like blue? Let's build on blue. Because there's not just one blue. There's a Tiffany blue, sure. There's a navy blue. There's a grey blue. So it just depends on what colour you're naturally drawn to, and building on something from there, because you're the one that's living in the space. So it's got to appeal to you. And
on the note of warm colours, because I feel like this is something that I've learnt from you, can you describe a warm colour and a cold color? Because, for example, this house was very grey when we moved in. It was a very cold grey, but you've said that you can get a warm grey. So can you just share that? Because then help people realize that like not all browns, not all greys, whatever, are the same.
Correct. And I don't want to get too heavy and technical in colour, because otherwise we'll lose you. But so this house had a lot of blue grey. It was very cold. I'm looking at the grey door right now. So it was a very, it was a very blue grey. Whereas you can get something that has a red undertone, and it's quite often got a red base when they're mixing it. So it's obviously got a warmer undertone. And if you get a fan deck, or go to your Dulux or your Bunnings or your Home Depot or Ace Hardware, which is where I've gone and seen all the Benjamin Moore colours there, you can definitely see when you put one grey palette next to another, you can see that some are warmer than the others. And it's about the undertone. So some are very cool and blue, and others have got the red, and they're obviously warmer.
Yeah.
And again, it depends on the location in the house. So we're in the Northern Hemisphere. So the ideal scenario is your backyard faces south, which is what you do have. So therefore, all the northern rooms don't get as much light and are colder. So you need to paint those rooms a warmer colour than a cooler colour. So to paint a room that faces south in the Northern Hemisphere, you could definitely paint it a lighter colour. You could put more colour in it. You could make it brighter because it's a sunnier area. You could use a colder colour if you wanted to, but using cold colours in a north facing, I have to remember because I'm in the southern hemisphere. So like, for example, the office downstairs, if you painted that a really cool blue, it would be 10 times worse than if you put that same colour in a sunny aspect. So in Australia, for example, you have to take into consideration painting bedrooms, for example, kids' bedrooms, cool blues, if they're in the southern part of the house, just things like that. So you need to sort of know the aspect, and the best way to judge a colour and to see a colour's true undertone is to look at it in the sun. Look at it in the sunlight. Yeah. How many grey houses have you seen out there that have actually got purple undertones?
Okay.
Yeah. So look at colour in
also
real
just like
sunlight.
hire interior designer because like fuck this, I'm already zoned out. Oh my god. Well, but seriously, I will say I will say that one, I think it's so attractive and sexy, and it shows your self-worth when you invest in your environment, because your environment affects you and it's your space. But also I know I probably said this before, I think I said this before on my Instagram, maybe my podcast too. I had no idea the value of investing in an interior designer. Sorry, Mom, no offense. Until I did, because I thought that I was doing I thought that I was doing a fine job, or that I would do a fine job myself. But then even like before Mum came last time to our house here, you came like towards the end of last year, I'd like put some coffee table books places, blah, blah, blah. And Mum came in, and this is like 11 p.m. at night. She literally on this cabinet behind our sofa just moved some coffee table books and that like cement knot thingy and a lamp. And I was like screaming because I just could not believe that the subtlest thing made the biggest difference. And I think that a lot of us think that interior design is just something simple and like, oh, I can do it, I don't need to hire a designer. And I know that we don't all have the budget to hire a designer, but it is something that I think is worth investing in, because you are investing in your environment. And once it is done well, it is done.
It is done.
It is an investment, and you don't have to then save the headache on making the mistakes.
That's correct.
And
in the long run,
you know,
you save money.
Yeah,
it's done.
It's done, and it's done properly.
You know.
Okay. So next question. Okay. How to arrange things like bookshelves, mantles, cabinets, etc., and coordinate different things like vases, books, candles, etc., and make it look cohesive and intentional. You can quickly answer this, and then maybe we'll take a video and my behind the scenes bubble. I'll post it there later. So if you're in the behind the scenes bubble, you'll then see a video and Mum can give a few tips. But if you're not in the behind the scenes bubble, then more of a reason to join it. Okay. So can you answer that question?
Okay. So it's about high and low. It's about breaking it up. So if you've got a pile of, say, horizontal books on one shelf, you don't want to have another pile of horizontal books directly above it. Oh. It's about splitting it up. It's about working the colour and moving the colour around the space. And again, it's always about helping that eye travel around the bookcase, travel around a space. So, you know, you want to be able to go high and low. So, and I tend to group things in odd numbers, which is not always the case these days, and it just sort of depends. I'm just looking at some objects over here, but it's about balance, and like I said, high and low, and having different sort of what's the word I'm thinking of? Different intensities. So some objects are going to be quite solid, other objects are going to be light. So it's about the weight of an object as well.
It's having different weights.
Yeah, and spreading it out, and spreading it out.
That makes a lot of sense.
And plants. Put plants on your bookcase.
Yeah.
Trailing plants.
Okay.
Greenery. There's a lot of indoor plants that don't need a lot of light. They just need water.
Love that. Note to self. Okay, we've answered Natasha's question. Okay, how to mix patterns to feel more luxurious. Also favorite Greige paint color. Is that a word?
Greige.
Greige. Oh, on the note of paint, can you please, because my audience will know this, what is the thing that makes a paint non-toxic/toxic? If anybody wants to have low toxic paint, non-toxic paint, because we have non-toxic paint in the house, it's all we use. Can you just, what was the name? What's the thing called? The fumes or whatever. I don't know what it's called. I can't. I'm done.
Low VOC, so low volatile organic compounds.
What are some quick brand names?
So, well, most big brands like Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, you know, a lot of people, and Dulux obviously in Australia, but again, Dulux is a big brand. I like the small guys, so I tend to use Hames a lot because, again, it's Australian made, Australian company.
What's the paint that we've used that's American? So Benjamin
Moore. And look, there's all different grades, there's all different qualities. A lot of people still use oil-based paints, but they give off toxic fumes. That paint also tends to yellow over time, and you're breathing in these toxins day in, day out, which is not good. And we know a lot more about paint now. So I would opt for something that had next to none. No VOCs, low toxicity.
Love that. Okay, so how to mix patterns to feel more luxurious. I feel like we maybe already answered that. I don't know. Also favorite greige, whatever it was, paint color.
So hang on, do they want an actual name of a paint color then? That's greige?
I don't know, maybe. Just answer how you think. Okay. Maybe give some favorites.
Okay, well, yeah, so I probably talk more Hanes, which is probably not known to a lot of people. But so your greige is more where you're mixing your white, your brown, and your what did I say? White, brown, grey. So again, that comes down to sort of a warm grey. So it depends what you're looking for, and it also, you know, a colour is also determined by what it's going on. So
yeah, that's right. You were saying like your favorite could be terrible in that room that they need a grey for.
Well, the thing is, if you've got a textured wall and you've got to paint that, well, that's going to take a lot more paint, and it's going to be, the light's going to be refracting off it, so it's going to look a lot darker if you've got a plastered textured wall, for example, like a stucco house or something like that. That takes a lot more paint than something that's like a smooth plasterboard like we've got here. So mixing patterns, I quite like mixing patterns together, but I don't. There's a great designer in Australia, and I've had a mental blank. Oh my god! And I went to her house, and okay, skip that one. You'll have to skip that one.
Shit, that's okay. Well, it comes back
anyway. But I do like mixing patterns. I tell you, there's someone I do really love, and that's Kit Kemp. Her fabrics are to die for. They're quite intense. She does this hotel range with her husband called Ferndale Hotels. So that one of them is the Crosby, then you've got the Whitby in New York.
She's fucking obsessed.
And I am obsessed. They're quite intense spaces, but I love the colour. And
what makes it luxurious?
The finishes. So it's the detail. It's the detail. So there's a lot of fringing. There's a lot of colour. It's about how she's finished off an item, finished off an upholstered chair. Okay. It's just attention to detail. It also comes down to, you know, the sheen and the gloss level of certain things that can really influence sort of the luxurious feel of it, and just the quality of the fabric. So a cotton is going to feel different to a velvet, for example.
Yes.
A lot of people could relate to that.
Okay, cool. All right. Let me quickly look at these quick ones that you guys left in the DMs. We've answered all the behind the scenes bubble ones. There was a really good question about, combining opposite styles. So this is a good one for everyone. So if you and your partner have very different styles, or maybe, that one. And then also, what if your style is constantly changing? Like me, I'm a one thing one day, another thing another day. Advice.
Okay, so it's about, again, finding that happy medium always. So again, come back to the feel. How do you want it to feel? Okay. How does your partner want it to feel? Because that's really what you've got to build on. So and quite often a client doesn't actually know what they want.
Yeah, you're right. Because my fiance thought he wanted one thing, but then as we've gone through the process, oh my God, Butter wants to come in. As we've gone through the process, he's then realized he's kind of changed what he wants.
Yeah. And look, you do change over time. I've changed a lot. I used to be quite country in my original taste, and now all these years later, I'm quite eclectic.
Yeah.
And I mix up antiques. So I've had a brain fart.
So when you had your partner, we've done this for a very long time. We need to go in a second. But I do want to answer this question. Do you want you to get this answered? So
no.
When you two have different styles, how can you blend or like how can you come to a happy medium?
Yeah.
So focus on the feeling, anything else.
So focus on the feeling, color palettes. Okay. So I had a client, he was very, very modern. She wanted boho. So then we're talking a sleek form of boho. We're talking that sophisticated form of boho. So we're not talking real shabby chic sort of stuff, really rustic stuff. We're talking the look of rustic, but it's got to be smooth lines, which meets more the contemporary modern feeling of the husband. So it was about sort of doing the happy blend. It was the palette overall was quite latte and quite neutral, but we had a bit of sheen. We introduced a bit of brass, but it was sort of a boho way of introducing a bit of brass. Okay. So it's about picking out from one style and the other style, that sort of commonality. So he quite liked a bit of gold in the contemporary feel. So how can I put that into a boho kind of feel and vibe? So it was kind of mixing the two and using keywords. But like I said, quite often clients don't actually know what they want until you show them pictures. And I have so many questions that I ask clients to get the information out of them.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Okay. I love that. All right. Let's pick another, maybe one or two of these questions, and then we will call it a day. Okay. What pulls a room together? I've just learned, by the way, that rugs pull a room together. I had no idea. We just got our rug for our bedroom, and it makes the place look so calm. It pulls the space together. Like, I can't even explain it, but it makes the biggest difference, that rug. And half of it is under the bed. Yeah. So,
it grounds a space. It really just solidifies a space. It's that starting point.
Yeah.
It grounds the space, and it just makes a space feel solid from which you can grow everything else. And I would do as big a rug as you can always afford to do. Armadillo. I love armadillo.
We did a lot of armadillo.
Armadillo.
Yeah.
They have a lot of stock rugs. They have big rugs, and they're really good quality, and what they stand for is really good.
Yeah.
But anyway, by the by, there's a million rug companies out there, but I'd also be looking at secondhand rugs. A rug is a great place to start.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're doing a neutral palette in a space, you could do a bit more of a patterned rug.
Yep. Love that. Okay, cool. One of the other really good questions was, what do you recommend splurging on versus saving on when designing? I loved that.
Okay. Well, I am a bit of a high and low. So I would spend money on your sofa because your butt's going to sit on that most days.
Yeah, we spent money on things that we will spend a lot of time looking at, being in, like our bed, our sofa, coffee table, kitchen. What else? I don't know.
And again,
Offices.
lamps. You don't have to spend a fortune on lamps. Pottery Barn, CB2,
Soho
Home.
Yep.
Like, you don't need to spend a lot on things like that. Knick-knacky things. IKEA's got lots.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I'm not into disposables of living, but IKEA, there's definitely a place for IKEA in the market.
Yeah.
It still has great things that you can stylize, and books, you know.
Yeah. Coffee table books.
Books really add warmth. They add story. Literally, they add another dimension. They add color. They fill a space. What else pulls a room together? Lamps, lighting, flowers, plants.
Yeah. But like what else should you splurge on versus save in? Anything else? So also like artwork, for example. I don't have an eye for art. I don't really appreciate art. Fiance also doesn't really appreciate art. So we decided that we didn't want to be spending big bucks on art because we don't have an appreciation. That could change, but we don't currently have an appreciation for it. Yeah. We have an appreciation for photography more so. So we have spent quite a bit of money on really nice photos and like this gallery wall, for example. And then we spend more on getting a custom bed because we want the bed to be perfect and fuck knows what else. But
well, things that you obviously spend a lot of time looking at or using. I bet sofa. So and the rug, lighting, you don't have to spend a lot of money on. But again, you might find, like you did, that fabulous pendant light. So you do splurge on.
Yeah, because
so I'm a bit of a high and low, but definitely sofa. Go for the best sofa you can afford.
Yeah.
Because it will go the distance, as opposed to 2 years later from Freedom Furniture, it's in landfill.
Yep. Amen. All right, Mum. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Bubba's now joined us. Butter. Well, we call him Bubba now. It's a nickname. Okay, so I want to quickly get you to share with everybody the process of how it looks to work with an interior designer, because I feel like a lot of us don't know. We make assumptions of what it looks like, and maybe every interior designer is different.
Yeah.
But for example, like there's benefit. Like yes, you pay for your hours, so we're paying for your hours, but we save X amount on the sofa or the curtains because we get trade discounts, etc. And that way, in a way, we're saving money because having you do it, it's like it is being done once and fucking well. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to then make a mistake trying to do it myself, paying retail price and having to rebuy it because I hate the item or it doesn't work in the space. So can you just quickly really like talk about that?
So I have a 15-step process that I use, but I start...
All right, already asleep.
Yeah, exactly. But I start by sending a client a questionnaire, and they have quite a few questions that they need to go through. A question like, where would you like to live? Like fun questions. Okay. What's your favorite music?
Okay.
Anyway, so I have a step-by-step process that I go through. I'm very open about all my pricing. I share my discounts over and above 15%, so a client can ask me for any original invoice and I will give it to them. Okay. Nothing to hide. It's all in my contract. Very open communication. There's no regulation for the interior design industry in Australia. I think there is a bit more in America, but it's not like architects. I know, gorgeous little thing. But very different to architects. So I try and be as clear and as open as I can with my process, and I work via email all the time, and Zoom. Well, obviously through COVID, it was all Zoom. So that the client knows what stage we're up to, where things are tracking. I update them constantly. I invoice once a month. I bill hourly, so they know that where I'm spending my time. I go through and I explain everything to them, but I'm very open with my numbers, and I start out with a budget so that the client knows roughly where they're at.
Yep.
But I create a whole picture. I don't do a piecemeal project, although yours has been a bit piecemeal, but this has been a bit different.
Yeah.
But I create a whole concept. So it's an overall image for a whole house, or an overall, feel image for a room, depending on what it is.
Okay, amazing. So just to clarify for everyone, to make that quick. So yes, you pay an interior designer, or you pay you hourly, but you also get these trade discounts. So if you went to, let's just say CB2, for example, and you wanted to buy this sofa, if you had mum buying the sofa, or maybe you're interior design depending, then you would actually get 20% off that sofa.
Well, it's not quite 20.
Okay, well, whatever.
But
whatever the discount is. Some is 10, some is 5, whatever it is.
Exactly, but it's over and above the discount. It's the fact that you know that you're investing in a piece that's going to work.
Yes.
That it's going to work with the other items in the space, because it's always a whole unit that we talk about.
And it saves you fucking time.
But otherwise, you've got to do the groundwork. So sadly, I've got a client back in Australia who is spending so much time tracking her fridge door that never came with the fridge, because I'm over here and I'm trying to jump in and help her. And she's just like, oh my God, this is driving me insane. But that's where, you pay me, yes, but I have the nous, I have the contacts, I do the tracking for you.
Yeah.
I pull it all together.
If you're a busy woman, and you want a nice space, or a busy man or a busy family and you want a nice space, it's like you get to hand over and just trust that your vision and the feel that you want is going to happen. Like the amount of times where mum's showing me like fucking fabrics or different furniture, and I'm like, I don't care, make a decision, fuck it, don't, because I trust you. I know that you know the vision that I'm after, and the amount of times I cannot tell you, I'm like, that's going to look terrible. And then it arrives and I'm like, holy shit, this looks so good. I really had to learn to just trust that I don't have a knack for seeing how a space is pulled together, and you do have a knack. And that's what you're paying for.
Yeah.
It's a one and done.
I'm a very visual person, so I can see how things come together, but I also draw it, and I do 3D renders so that the client can have a visual as well to get it across the line. Okay. But in the long run, you save because it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Your space works.
Yeah.
And it all comes together, and you don't have the heartache. The heartache is on me.
Yeah.
But that's why you work with good suppliers.
Yeah.
Good people.
Well, thank you, Mum, for coming onto the podcast. Hi, Butter. Thank you, Mum, for coming onto the podcast and sharing all this amazing wisdom with us. If you would like to follow Mum, hire her, whatever, all the details are below. Her business name is Three Little Pigs Color and Design. And you can reach out to her.
She's one of my pigs.
I'm one of the pigs. That sounds so weird when you say it out loud sometimes. I'm one of the cute little pigs. So you can reach out to her anytime and inquire, but keeping in mind that you are doing this new thing where, well, we think you're going to do this new thing where you'll have a one-off quick Zoom consultation if you need any advice, help on how to do this bookshelf, or I need a piece of furniture in this room, what can I get? And it's a one-off situation. And then Mum only does work with big projects. So please keep that in mind, because just kind of just like me, like you realize after a while that you want clients that you can really help long-term. And having an interior designer only do a few pieces in the house, I'm like, I don't think it's worth it then. Well, because it's hard. It's just sort of like bitsy.
Yeah, it's only piecemeal and only that area will work.
Yeah, and then it's like the rest of the house looks shit. So it's like do it all or do nothing, in my opinion. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope that you love the episode. If you did love the episode, please make sure you share it on your Instagram story or send it to your group thread or whatever. If you share it on your Instagram story, you can tag me and you can tag at 3 Little Pigs. 3 is the number. And you will see Mum's logo come up. It's a green logo. Tag us both so that we can say thank you. And I will see you on the next episode.
Thanks. Bye.